Hey, Michael with XForcePC. Want to talk about troubleshooting your controllers. Some do's and don'ts, and then how to figure out if you're having trouble or not. The first thing is, at least with the Logitech products, they come with, or you can get software for them. And I'm talking about the Logitech yoke, Logitech pedals, Logitech throttle. I'm not talking about the panels. We're only talking about controllers. And if you've installed the software that comes with those controllers or that you can get on their website, that's your first mistake. They're absolutely unnecessary and can only screw things up. I just plug my controllers in and I'm done. Just plug them in. Simple as that. Can't get more simple. Plug it in. That's it. You're done. Now, the next thing that you might be tempted to do that would also be a mistake, if you go to the control panel, I'm just typing the word control down here in the search box, and then I'm going to go to small icons because I don't like this category view, and then I'm going to go to devices and printers, and I will see my controllers in here like the Flight Sim Yoke USB. I never go in here. I never mess with this, and I never have any trouble. If you come in here, you're looking for trouble. But you can go to game controller settings, you can go to properties, you can start messing around with settings and calibration and all that. But again, I have never found a need to go in here. You only go in here if you just, nothing else has worked and you just feel like you just have to. But I've set up hundreds of systems and I never need to go in here. There is a calibrate. If you've screwed around in here, maybe your best bet is just simply to reset to default. But again, I have never had any need to go into the settings in Windows. I do all my setup in X-Plane. So that's what we will talk about next. So if you start up X-Plane and you have uncalibrated devices, you'll get a message asking if you want to calibrate the device when you go to start a flight. So almost always you're going to want to say, well, yeah, I do want to do that. So I'm going to open up the joystick calibration, and this is where I'll do that, and you just follow the directions. I hit calibrate now, and I just turn my yoke left and right, push my yoke all the way in, pull all the way out, and then move the 3 axes on the top of the CH yoke, and they're all taken care of and calibrated. So that's all I've done to set this thing up. Okay, it also sets up a bunch of buttons for you, and you can just click on the various buttons and see how they light up to sort of see what they do. And you can reassign those later. We're not going to get into that right now, but as you hit each of the buttons, it'll sort of highlight it and let you know what is what that function of that button will do. Now, typically the prop and mixture on the controller does have to be reversed, but I did not do that just now because I want to go ahead and get into X-Plane and see how things are working. And the first and most easiest way to check your controllers is visually within the cockpit. Just put yourself on a cockpit and orient yourself in such a way that you can see all of your controls and actually see them moving. And that's what I always tell people to do to check things out. Alright, so I'm going to close this GPS. And I'm going to turn the sound off so you can hear me better. Now, I'm using the right mouse button to pan around. This isn't the best plane in my opinion. This is the Cessna 172 for checking out your controls. I think that the best one is the Baron. So we're going to open up the Baron. And the reason is it has a 3-lever throttle quadrant. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my yoke slowly to the right, slowly to the left, And look at that. Yes, it is indeed matching my movement. If you turn your yoke just slightly and it goes all the way like that, well, then you have a calibration issue of some sort. As you do this, you should see your yoke, just do it nice and slow, totally track what you're doing to the physical yoke in your hand. Same with the levers. I'm going to move the throttle all the way forward and all the way back, and you can see it moving. I'm going to do prop and mixture, and in my case these things are apparently, yeah, backwards. So I'm moving the prop and it's actually moving the mixture, so I know I've got an issue there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the settings and joystick, and we want to go to the back view, I think, where we can see our levers better. So I'm going to move the throttle. You can see that moves correctly. I'm going to use the prop, move the prop, and notice that it's actually moving the bar for mixture. So I simply change this to prop. Now notice I get this little red thing down here. You almost never want to see this because you have two axes assigned to the same thing, and they're going to be fighting each other. The middle lever and the right lever are assigned to the same thing right now. And let's just see what that does. As I try to move, they fight with each other. And actually in this case, the prop is sort of overriding the mixture lever. But if you ever get a case where you're going to move the lever and it moves just a little bit and then immediately jumps back down again, that's a sign of having two things assigned to the same thing. So the middle lever's prop, the right lever I want to be mixture. And you can test this by just simply moving the levers and looking at the little bars move, and they're all correct now. Now I'm going to go back into the plane here and move my throttle, prop, and mixture. So what I'm noticing now is I'm all the way forward on the prop and the mixture, but yet they're all the way back and vice versa. So they're reversed. So as I mentioned earlier, you probably in almost every case are going to have to reverse the prop and the mixture. And so now when I go all the way back and all the way forward on these levers, they are behaving as they should. So know that you'll almost always have to reverse those. Now next we want to talk about some advanced troubleshooting. Okay, let's take a look at some advanced troubleshooting for our controllers. The first and simple thing, this isn't terribly advanced, is to go to View and go to an external view and go to Chase, which is shortcut for that is Shift 8. And then I'm going to hit the plus sign to zoom in a little bit so you can now see your control surfaces. I'm going to turn the ailerons or the yoke all the way to the right, all the way to the left, and I can see my ailerons moving. I do not have pedals installed, so you can see that it's auto-coordinating my rudder for me, and I can verify that's moving as it should. And then I can push my elevator axis in, pull my elevator axis out, and I can visually verify that it is working properly. And if it's working improperly, you've got some work to do. Lastly, I've got some buttons assigned to the flaps. So I'll push the flaps down one time. I can see them go down partially. Hit it again and they go down the rest of the way, and I'll do the same thing on the way up. And you can see those go back up. So that's sort of moderately advanced troubleshooting. The next thing we want to do is look at real advanced troubleshooting. So I'm going to look down so I can see my yoke, and then I'm going to go to the settings and go to the data output tab. And be careful in here, don't go crazy. If you don't know what you're doing, you probably shouldn't fool with it. But right here, number 11, flight controls, aileron, elevator, and rudder. I want to output that to the cockpit display. And I checked the wrong one. I want that one. And see, this column is show in cockpit. You can see I've already got the frame rate in the cockpit. Now I'm going to output the flight controls to the cockpit. And in the upper left corner here, you'll see some numbers. And just for simplicity, I'm going to turn the frame rate off, so all we have is what we want to see right now. We have elevator, aileron, and rudder. And when they're centered, that number should be 0. And you might go, oh my gosh, that number's not 0. We've got problems. But look at the number, 0.0087. That is extremely close to 0. 0.03, that's very close to 0. That little bit of offness is not going to be a big deal. If it's anything more than 0.1, then it's probably something, 0.01, you probably need to take a look at it. Now, see my yoke here on the screen. When I turn it all the way to the right, notice that the aileron number in the upper left corner goes to +1. All the way to the left, it goes to close to -1. And when it's in the center, it goes close to 0 again. Same with the elevator axis. If I push it all the way in, elevator goes to -1. Pull it all the way back, and it goes to +1. And the same will hold true for your rudder. When I turn it, we're not getting a full amount of rudder because we're doing auto coordination here. But you see when I turn it to the left, you can see my pedals moving down there, and you can see the rudder axis move as well as the nose wheel axis. Now, if I had pedals hooked up and I fully deflected them, that would go to -1 and +1 for the rudder control. So that is some advanced troubleshooting of your controls. Next, we'll talk about some even more advanced setup of your controllers. So one more thing you can try if you just can't get your controllers to work the way you want is to reset to default. So this will reset this controller to its default settings and you can sort of start over. You can also calibrate it again, which is here. Just go through the calibration process again, and hopefully that will take care of things for you. And then the other thing you can do, which I do not recommend, is down here you can select control sensitivity. I think the defaults are where they need to be, but you can see here you can play with these and note that the default is 25% on everything. But if you find you need more augmentation or less or more control response, then you can go down here to control sensitivity and you can manipulate that. And that's mostly if you're not able to control the plane enough, or your actions with your yoke are creating too much control and you're actually sort of losing control. But again, if these are where they are right here and you're having major problems, changing these settings, this is not going to fix a major problem. These are just slight tweaks, like you've got it just about where you want it and you just want to tweak it a little bit. If you're totally out of control and you can't turn and you're crashing and you're not able to fly, this is not your issue unless you've just gone in here and gone crazy and turn these to something ridiculous. This is meant for small tweaks, very subtle tweaks. Don't even come in here if you're totally out of control. This is one of the last things you mess with. So the last thing we're going to talk about is if all this other stuff I've said has failed, one last thing that you can try to get yourself set up on your controllers. Okay, so we've quit X-Plane for this particular thing, and I'm going to go to the C drive. Basically, you have to browse to your X-Plane installation. Now, X-Plane by default installs itself on the desktop, but I put it on my C drive. So I'm just browsing to my X-Plane folder, and then I'm going to go to Output and then Preferences. And these are the preferences for the various controls that you have in the plane. And what you want to do is, if all else has failed, you just can't get your controllers to work, to save your life, go in here and delete xplane calibration.prf and xplane joystick settings.prf. And if you delete them, they'll actually go into the recycle bin. So if you needed to restore them, you could come back here and right-click on them and choose Restore, as long as you don't empty the recycle bin. Now, I've deleted those files, and what that should cause is when I start xplane back up, it should act like it's never seen this CH Products yoke that I have plugged in before in its life, and ask me to see. It says Open Joystick Calibration, and then you go through the same gyration again where you move all the levers back and forth and so forth. And so hopefully that will, if none of the other things I've given you have enabled you to fix your controller, hopefully that will get the job done for you.